Namaste, Jai Bharat. One could wonder and ask this question that when normal, common, otherwise known words are put into the form of poetry, where does this magic of poetry comes from? They are the words which we are familiar with. They are not unknown to you. But then when they're arranged in the pattern of a poetry, it acquires a magic. One can ask this question, from where this magic comes. Philosophy is an area where people are involved in all kinds of interesting conceptual exercises. One such similar question is asked both in Europe and also in Bharat, that sentences give a meaning. In fact, one of the meaning empiricism says that language is deciphering thoughts into the pattern of language. Language is ciphering your thoughts into language, and the person who hears it deciphers it to get the concepts what's in your mind. This is a common way we understand how meaning is conveyed. Now, when someone ciphers his ideas into language, if it happens to be inappropriate, that's going to be a very difficult situation. But most often we find at the deciphering end, the ideas or the concepts are not appropriately grasped at times. That's it. But while making a ciphered, while ciphering your thoughts, if mistakes are made, then that's going to be grave and serious. Similarly, a question can be asked, from where the sentence acquire the meaning. Then there are two views, as two popularly known views. One, sentences in themselves are meaningful. One section of people say. Other people will say words have meaning. So words are minimum unit of meaning, and they get into use in sentence. And this controversy goes on in European philosophy. But then, before European philosophy ever took off, there was a philosopher from Bharat, our dearest Mimamsa school, Prabhakara Mishra, from the south of Bharat. He says, look, words are minimum units of meaning, all right. But when, this is important, this is his contribution, but when words are used in sentence, they undergo a change in their meaning for the requirement of the contextual use of that sentence. But once the word is used in sentence and the use is done, the word always goes back to its original whatever meaning as the unit, and it functions as a unit of meaning. Otherwise, sentence in themselves are not meaningful. Now, this is the position of Prabhakara Mishra, the Mimamsa philosopher, and for me that happened to be very convincing. Similarly, I am trying to speak about Sanskriti through these examples. My wonder is, what is the minimum unit of Sanskriti? Right in the beginning, let me make a distinction between Sanskriti and culture, though Sanskriti is often and regularly translated into English as culture. But then there is a distinction, and a very serious distinction, between culture and Sanskriti. Let's see, for instance, what is culture? let's try to understand the let's try to unpack the concept of culture. After traveling through all these both broader and narrow alleys into unpacking the meaning of the concept of culture, one can just at random or roughly conclude that culture is refined human existence. I suppose that it should be acceptable to most people. Culture is refined human existence. Refined simply, literally itself mean that you get away with all kinds of impurities, all conceivable kinds of impurities. All conceivable kinds of impurities are done away with. Not really an abstraction, but it's a purification. So then, refined human existence is taken as culture. But then, how is a concept of culture differing from a concept of Sanskriti is important. Sanskriti is also refined human existence, but it has a basis. It rests itself on a very solid foundation of a knowledge tradition. Not only that, it is based on a knowledge tradition, but also it has an inbuilt longing towards the transcendental. So, Sanskriti is much wider than culture, both at its base as well as its development towards something that is higher. Higher, of course, higher. We don't know how higher. That's there. So, in Sanskriti is a term used in Sanskrit language. Now, Sanskrit language itself implies refined. So, Sanskriti is a Sanskrit concept. It's expressed in Sanskrit language, and of course, in most languages of Bharat, the word is same, because many of our languages have many Sanskrit words, many Sanskrit words. So, Sanskriti is essentially in Bharatiya context. So, the Sanskriti is based on a knowledge tradition, I told you. And the knowledge tradition, what if you ask, is obviously the Veda Upanishad knowledge tradition. And don't ever mistake the Vedas and Upanishads or Sutras, Shrutis, so whatever, as religious texts. They are not religious texts. Though though a dharma evolves out of it subsequently, but they are not essentially religious texts. They are knowledge texts. They are available to you. You can treat them, or you should treat them, as knowledge texts alone. So, there is a knowledge tradition, the Veda Upanishadic knowledge tradition, which is actually a complete knowledge tradition. Why I say complete knowledge tradition is because you see for yourselves, look for yourselves. There is no aspect of knowledge. There is no aspect of knowledge possible for any human being civilization, any human being or human civilization, which is unattended and not worked on in Bharatiya knowledge tradition, the Veda Upanishadic knowledge tradition. Rhetorically, I used to say that we have a knowledge tradition right from Kama Sutra to the unqualified monism or Advaita Vedanta in Sanskrit. So, it's a complete knowledge tradition. Other civilizations' knowledge traditions, when you come across, if you're analytical about what you see, perceive, experience, then you will find they have knowledge tradition, but they are exclusive or in some areas. The knowledges are produced in some areas. You don't have a complete knowledge tradition anywhere as you find in Bharatiya knowledge tradition. So much so, there are two things. There was a time when Bharat had nearly 7 lakhs of universities where people from all over the world used to come, learn, and go back. If you accept that the knowledge has its roots either implicitly or explicitly with the Bharatiya knowledge tradition all over the world, then it's normal for you to understand that one travels to come learn and then learns and goes back and then develops upon it and works upon it and then expands it in his own manner or in his own knowledge context. So Sanskriti is the is different from culture in the sense that Sanskriti is based on a knowledge tradition with an inbuilt longing towards the transcendental. The transcendental is not sacred. I think it is Rudolf Otto who defines religion, I think in Chicago school, he defines religion as the fundamental the fundamental intentionality of human consciousness towards the sacred. I think it's Rudolf Otto who defines, or it must be C.R. Aguirre, one of them, who has defined religion as the fundamental intentionality of human consciousness towards the sacred. Here, the question of sacred is very clear. The concept of sacred is very clear. It's very established. But unlike a concept of sacred, which has got divinity built in it and all, the concept of a transcendental, when you try to weave out, might not have a divine content in it. And it is not just a concept of sacred, it may be something else. Or a notion of sacredness or being sacred may be not at all found in a concept of transcendental. So that's a different question. Let me come to the prime question. What is the minimum unit of Sanskriti? Where do you find a minimum unit of Sanskriti? So if you ask, if suppose you ask a mason the minimum unit of a wall, he would say they are the bricks. I think I'm right, or people can agree with me. Or if someone has a different opinion, fine. But most likely, as perception goes from my side, I see the minimum unit of a wall built is maybe bricks. Similarly, what is the minimum unit of Bharatiya Sanskriti? Sanskriti, of course, when one speaks of Sanskriti, it's automatically understood that that's essentially, exclusively in the context of Bharat. Because this concept is only present in Bharatiya context. The minimum unit of Sanskriti in Bharat is the Kutumba. Kutumba can roughly be translated into English as family, but then when you unpack the concept of family and you unpack the concept of Kutumba, you find the ingredients are varying. The ingredients may be different. Let's not go into the subtle aspects of this unpacking concept business of Kutumba. A lot of things are there, but essentially in Bharatiya context, Kutumba is family. Sanskrit word again. But one of the essential and inevitable aspect of a family, not only in Bharatiya context, but maybe anywhere, in all over the world, is a concept of sacrifice. Now, sacrifice is an English word which is inappropriate to present the concept of tyaga. Tyaga. Sacrifice means, that's an equivocal term. It can mean to sacrifice and to perform sacrifice. And also, see, when you look at the concept of atonement in Judaism, there is there's a kind of ritual performed in front of the altar, temple, where an animal is sacrificed. Now, sacrificing an animal the concept is different from a person making some sacrifice for something else. So, Tyaga is again a Sanskrit concept which will have other connotations, many other connotations as ingredients built into such concept. The Upanishad essentially says, I'm only using one word, Ishabhasmita Sarvam, it's okay. Tyaktena bhunjita. The prescriptive nature of Upanishad is Tyaktena bhunjita. You involve in whatever worldly, earthly, or even other matter, or you involve in anything in whichever aspect through tyaga. Tyaga, let me say, is an intense performance of sacrifice. Or tyaga is an intense performance of sacrifice out of complete selflessness. Tektena bhunjita. So one of the fundamental phenomenon in Kutumba or family is the overplay of this tyaga concept. Everyone happily performs tyaga for everyone else. So the Kutumba, the family, becomes the bricks of the great Bharatiya Sanskriti. Other things can follow, but let's just discuss about the minimum unit of the Bharatiya Sanskriti as family Kutumba. Now look at the family Kutumba in Bharatiya concept. We still do have joint families, but with the influence of modernity from without Bharat, or maybe you can even say that is the change brought in by the time. As time keeps going ahead, it goes on. You just can't put a full stop to time. And if it is possible for one to put full stop to time, I'm sure everyone would have put, if there are different times, my time, your time, if there are different times, everyone would have put a full stop to a time, maybe between the age of 30, 35 or less than 40, like that. So time you cannot stop. You cannot put a semicolon. You cannot, of course, obviously put a colon. So Kutumba, family, becomes a minimum unit of Bharatiya Sanskriti. And the one of the essential ingredients is concept of tyaga, which people keeps performing voluntarily, happily, tyaktena bhunjita, and not under any kind of compulsion or coercion or even some kind of moral compulsiveness. Nothing is like that. There are no moral imperatives. Modernity, that's what I was still telling, modernity or modern times have its own influence. In some societies more, in some societies less. Nonetheless, it has influences. Somewhere more, somewhere less, somewhere early, somewhere later. Modernity, then we have another phenomenon, postmodernism or postmodernity, what I should say, which is a further jump into what. So in this under this influence of modernity or whatever things come new from different corners of the world, though Rigveda explicitly say whatever noble things from whichever place by whosoever must be welcomed. Ano bhadra Kartavo yantu vishvata. Rigveda says that, but don't forget that word bhadra. We translated it into English as noble. Let noble things come. Noble things come, not ignoble things. Now, noble, ignoble, you have to dispute and you have to find out from whichever context you are, from time to time, context to context. Fine. There are influences from all kinds of corners, because the world is no longer no society is isolated in the world. However, a ruler may try to keep a society under isolation, ignorance, and hegemony, to borrow the term from Gramsci. It's not going to last long. The people will come out of it one day or the other. So this thought system influence comes. Now it affects the Kutumba concept in Bharat all the more. We somehow are still able to maintain our Kutumba concept, because we also base ourselves on a larger concept of the entire world as one Kutumba. Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. So we have a higher concept of family. The whole world is one family. Marxian internationalism is far flung. Here the concept of Vasudha means the whole world. Earth, Bhumi, world. Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam is one family. So family, we do have joint families, and at the same time, under the influence of both influences from without and also the inclination towards materialistic existence, this Bharatiya Kutumba also gets disturbed, affected, disturbed. There are a lot of practical difficulties in maintaining a joint family. There are plus points as well as minus points. Minus points are simple, straight, that everyone feels or everyone would feel, that you don't have a kind of independence and individual freedom in a joint family. Oh, on the one hand, you have the theories of phenomenology. We have the theories of existentialism in philosophy. And on the other hand, I am speaking about Kutumba. I am speaking about performance of Tyaga. There are philosophers who would argue that the other is a threat to that extent. I didn't want to take the name of which thinker. There are philosophers, again I am not taking the name. It's for you to find out and read. There are philosophers who says that there are two worlds. One is the inner world, another is the outer world. The outer world is totally unknown and unknowable, because you have an inner world picture based on your impressions of the outer world. Appears very logical, appears very correct, but only in one perspective. But that perspective alone is not everything. There you have to go beyond, as philosophy is expected to go beyond from what is the case to what ought to be the case. That's what really makes philosophy. So these influences make it difficult for the Kutumba to be Kutumba as it ought to be ideally. You don't have freedom as you understand freedom. No, again, when you talk about freedom, I would say there are two kinds of freedom. One is the freedom for overtaxation freedom too. And the real freedom is freedom from coercions. Which how would you interpret the unfreedom in a family, Kutumba, as coercion or not, or the beauty of belonging to some lofty ideas, it's up to you. So you don't have such kind of freedom in a joint family, in Kutumba. But you have absolute freedom. That is, you are not compelled to do everything. In the sense, you need help. You need help for so many things. You have children, you have to take care of their school. Like parents in this nation, they have to take care of the children in school. The government is not doing anything, can't do anything. It's your job to get good generation, because your generation should continue your tradition, your sampradaya, your parampara. In that thing we are experts. We have done. So the family. Someone is sick, some child is sick in the family, you don't have to bother. There's someone else who would take care of things. Now, that kind of dependence, you can depend on people. On the one hand, you don't have independence of overt action, and on the other hand, you can depend on other members of the family, blood relations or married relations. But if one is more materialistically inclined, if one is more self-oriented, this is an area which I would request you to think about. Are you more self-oriented about your own self? Are you, means is anyone, that's right. Or are you also concerned about other selves other than you, not only human selves, but animal selves, animate, inanimate, plant cells, and the cosmos? If you have an attitude towards the entire cosmos as a sense of belonging to them, you borrow a lot of things from them. You must be thankful. You must be thankful to the entire cosmos itself. When you have that attitude, there is no problem for you to live in a giant family. Hindu giant family, normally, there is no problem for you. But if you are more materialistically inclined, and if you feel that no, I should only be concerned about myself and my husband, my children, I don't want anyone else to influence my way of life. I will go and live only with my husband and children, or my wife and children. That become so-called nuclear families, and they will suffer many ways, and they also believe that they have limitless freedom. Actually, nobody has such limitless freedom, but then they feel that they have limitless freedom. So this is a disturbance to the Kutumba concept of Bharat. So one thing that people should be conscious about is that you may be compelled to live away from your parents. There can be all kinds of compulsion. You see, that is a very interesting thing from Manusmriti. Most of our texts are more misunderstood by people, the interpreters, than really understood. That's a usual thing with most of our texts. I'm talking about Manusmriti. Now, Manusmriti talks about freedom of a girl. Suppose you after menstruating, if the girl is not given in marriage to a man by her father, she has the right to choose her own husband. First right. Second right after marriage. If a husband goes away from her, suppose the husband goes for religious duties, she has to wait for him to come back for 3 years. And after 3 years, even if the husband has gone for sannyasa, or he has gone to a gurukula to learn, he had gone to a guru to learn in spiritual life, she need not to wait more than 3 years. After 3 years, if the husband has not come back, she can select another husband of her choice. Of her choice. Suppose the husband has gone outside to study, then she should only wait for 2 years. Need not wait for 3 years. 2 years, this man goes to study and he doesn't come back in 2 years, fine. She can select another husband. And the man, when he returns, has no say. And if the husband has gone on a business, she should only wait for 1 year to take another husband. These are the freedoms given to women in Manusmriti. But on the other hand, look at the pathetic situation of men. You cannot divorce your wife just like that. You can only divorce your wife under certain situations. One, she is insane. She goes insane. You can divorce an insane wife provided you have to ensure her material well-being. You have to ensure that she will be taken care of till she dies. The husband has to provide for everything and ensure the arrangements. Then, of course, he can go for another wife. Infertility is another reason, but he has to do the same thing. You just can't divorce a woman after marrying. The belief is that you are married for 7 births. That's why the 7 circle we make to the fire. You just can't get away. The man cannot get away from woman just like that. But she has the freedom of leaving husband. And only few cases a man can divorce a wife. Infidelity, of course. Infidelity, infertility, all those things. So, Kutumba is getting affected by modernity, all those things. In a manner, the Kutumba also is evolving with the time. The joint family continues in modern times with all the modernities and maybe post-modernities built into it. But there are cases when you can't be with parents for maybe because of your work or maybe because of your whatever. You may have to go away and stay in a different place. Then it is fine. But then if there is an opportunity to be together, for everyone to be together, then that is the ideal situation for the existence of every individual. Individual in interrelationship with other individuals, primarily as a family, and then as a society, and then obviously as a Rashtra, nation. Rashtra, nation. We call nation mostly as Rashtra, not simply as Rajya. Our Rashtra has got a Atma. Many others also have talked about nation soul. The nation has an Atma. Whether it has or not, we assume that to be the case to make it live, vivid as well as strong. Pujaniya Guruji said one thing: Rashtraya Swaha Idam Namama. I have not anything. I am primarily for the nation. Now, for this nation building is an ongoing process. It's never ending. Like the knowledge tradition of Vedas and Upanishads is never ending. It continues. It's so dynamic that it keeps changing, adapting itself to the requirement of both space and time. Similarly, nation building is an ongoing process. Given the requirements of both space and time, it keeps evolving. It has to evolve. So, Kutumba is a fundamental unit of Sanskriti, and Sanskriti is that which makes the nation dynamic, the knowledge based on the knowledge tradition, the nation dynamic, and the activities meaningful, appropriate, will be dharmic, on the basis of dharma and through dharma, and there is no question of adharma. So let's focus on the concept of Kutumba, the concept of family. That would really make us what we are. And if you're happy with what you are, let's also make it possible that the children of yours should also feel, after the children become of your age, they should also be happy, comfortable, and content. And to get these things done, to let this thing as an ongoing phenomenon, Kutumba must exist. Kutumba must exist meaningfully, then Sanskriti is secured. Once Sanskriti is secured, nation is secured. Society is secured, then nation is secured. Kutumba, Sanskriti, Samaj, society, and nation. So the fundamental unit, Kutumba, should be attended to. This is something which everyone can do, of your own Kutumba, of your own family. It's not necessary that given the requirement of time, all of you cannot stay together always. Okay, physical togetherness may be not possible, or rather is not possible. But mental togetherness is very possible. So as the case stands today, we can, and most likely we should only, aspire for mental togetherness. And with the advent and coming of all these communication development techniques, it's not that difficult to be mentally together. In my younger days, what we used to do is you write letters to father. Now writing letter to father, not to mother, but together. And there is no time for you to write a letter, for him to receive it, and then reply. So what we used to do, every day post a letter, the chain starts. He would also every day write a letter, the chain comes there. So at times you do not know, we ask something and you get a reply, you might not remember that when you asked this. So let's focus on a thriving Kutumba, meaningful Kutumba, that should make Kutumba alive, dynamic, and facilitate Kutumba to near and dear ones, friends, and society as far as possible. We shall meet again with another pieces of thought some other time. Namaste, Jai Bharat, Jai Shri Ram.